when birthday wishes turn into final breaths and party games become death traps. These 6 devastating stories will shatter everything you believe about safe celebrations. Witness how the most joyful moments can transform into unthinkable nightmares in mere seconds, as ordinary celebrations spiral into tragedy beyond imagination. It was April 18, 2015, when the community gymnasium in Dayton, Ohio, hosted what should have been a joyful celebration. The modest facility had been rented by the Hayes family for an afternoon birthday party. Spring weather had driven activities indoors, and the gym's polished floors provided safe space for children. Maren Hayes, 9 years old and the birthday girl, was known for being exceptionally quiet and well-behaved. Standing barely 4 feet tall and weighing less than 60 pounds, she was often the smallest child in any group. Her teacher described her as conscientious and eager to please. That afternoon, she wore a pink dress chosen for her party. The gymnasium's retractable metal bleachers had been partially extended to provide seating for 20 guests. These industrial units, designed to support hundreds of spectators, extended outward in tiered rows, with the fully deployed structure reaching approximately 12 feet from back frame to front edge. For the party, they had been pulled out only 4 feet, creating 3 rows about 18 inches apart. Gift bags were placed beneath the lowest row. The adults, including Maren's parents and relatives, stepped into an adjacent kitchen to prepare her birthday cake. This left 15 children, ages 6 to 12, unsupervised in the gymnasium. A wall-mounted security camera captured the bleacher area from an elevated angle. Several children climbed onto the lowest bleacher row, drawn by the elevated seating. Their combined weight, nearly 300 pounds, concentrated toward the front edge. The bleacher system, designed for even distribution, began experiencing stress as children bounced and shifted position. The unsecured bleacher section responded by shifting forward. Metal support brackets, not fully locked during setup, allowed the unit to settle several inches toward the floor. This movement occurred gradually, creating gaps between rows and causing some children to notice instability. During this moment, Maren crouched beneath the lowest bleacher row. She had dropped a gift bag and was retrieving it from the narrow space between the framework and hardwood floor. Her position placed her directly under the heaviest section. The bleacher frame shifted forward after a gradual loss of stability, dropping several inches as unsecured locking brackets failed under uneven load. The collapsing frame pinned Maren's head and upper torso against the floor, applying crushing force across her skull and chest. The framework's weight, combined with children still seated above, created crushing pressure across her chest. She collapsed immediately and showed no movement after the bleacher settled. Other children began screaming when they realized someone was trapped beneath the metal structure. Adults rushed back within seconds of hearing commotion. They found Maren motionless beneath the framework, her small frame nearly invisible under the construction. Several parents attempted to lift the section manually, but the weight proved too substantial. Emergency responders arrived within 8 minutes. Paramedics worked to stabilize the scene while firefighters used hydraulic equipment to raise the bleacher unit. Maren was extracted within minutes, but after assessment by paramedics, she was pronounced dead at the scene due to the severity of her injuries. Investigation revealed the bleacher system had not been properly secured during setup. Safety protocols required multiple locking mechanisms when units were extended, but these were overlooked during preparation. Security footage confirmed the sequence and verified no adults were present during the accident. The coroner attributed Maren's death to blunt force trauma and compressive asphyxiation. The combination of initial impact and sustained pressure proved immediately fatal. Investigators concluded proper supervision and equipment securing would have prevented the tragedy. It was August 14, 2016, when a suburban duplex kitchen in Mesa, Arizona, became the scene of a tragic accident during a birthday celebration. The cramped kitchen, measuring 8 by 10 feet, served as the center of activity for Lance Sterling's 27th birthday party. Arizona's summer heat, still lingering near 90 degrees after midnight, had driven the celebration indoors. Lance Sterling worked as a warehouse loader at a local distribution center, a physically demanding job that had built his stocky frame over 5 years. Standing 5 feet 8 inches and weighing 180 pounds, he was known for his impulsive nature and attention-seeking behavior. That evening, Lance had consumed several beers and was displaying his need to entertain guests. The kitchen contained standard apartment appliances with a narrow counter separating the stove from a dining area. A portable propane burner had been placed on the counter to keep birthday food warm, as the apartment's electric stove lacked sufficient space. This device remained lit throughout the evening, its blue flame providing heat under aluminum trays. Grease residue from earlier cooking had accumulated on a metal tray positioned 6 inches from the propane flame. The residue, consisting of oil and food particles, had not been cleaned during the party. Birthday candles on Lance's cake had been extinguished and relit multiple times as guests requested photo opportunities. As the celebration extended past midnight, Lance decided to perform one final candle-blowing demonstration for a friend's smartphone camera positioned 4 feet away. Lance positioned himself in front of the birthday cake, which sat between the propane burner and the grease-covered tray. Lance leaned forward across the narrow counter to reach the candles, placing his upper torso over the cooking area. His cotton t-shirt hung freely as he bent toward the cake. The propane burner continued operating at full intensity, its blue fire reaching 2 inches in height. When Lance exhaled forcefully to extinguish the candles, the airflow altered the propane flame's shape, extending it sideways into the nearby grease residue. The grease ignited instantly, creating a flash fire that spread across the metal tray and surrounding counter within seconds. The sudden flare-up reached Lance's cotton shirt at chest level, where the fabric caught fire immediately. The flames climbed rapidly across his cotton shirt toward his neck and face, the loose fabric allowing the fire to spread in seconds. Lance stumbled backward from the counter, his movements hampered by panic and the confined space. He fell against the opposite wall, where flames continued burning his shirt for several seconds before guests intervened. Friends attempted to smother the flames using kitchen towels and eventually succeeded in extinguishing the fire. However, Lance had sustained significant burns to his upper torso, neck, and lower face. The heat and smoke inhalation caused immediate swelling in his airway, restricting his breathing. Emergency responders arrived within 7 minutes but found Lance experiencing severe respiratory distress. Paramedics administered oxygen and attempted to stabilize his airway during transport. Despite their efforts, progressive airway swelling and inhalation injury caused Lance to lose effective breathing capacity during transport. The medical examiner attributed his death to airway injury and respiratory failure from thermal burns and smoke inhalation. Smartphone footage confirmed the sequence and identified the propane burner as the ignition source. It was July 4, 2017, when a private dock on Lake Lanier, Georgia became the scene of a tragic accident during a birthday celebration. The wooden dock, extending 30 feet into the lake's calm waters, had been hosting a party since late afternoon. Summer temperatures had reached 88 degrees, but evening brought comfortable conditions. Grady Beck, 34 years old and a construction foreman, had chosen this location to celebrate his birthday with friends and family. Standing 6 feet tall and weighing 200 pounds, Grady was known for his competitive nature and risk-taking behavior. His supervisor described him as capable but prone to showing off. Grady had worked in construction for 12 years, developing a casual attitude towards safety protocols. The celebration continued throughout the evening, with guests enjoying food, drinks, and lake activities. Grady had consumed several beers but appeared coherent. As darkness fell around 9:30, the group decided to conclude with a fireworks display, a tradition Grady maintained for previous birthdays. Consumer-grade fireworks had been purchased from a local retailer, including aerial shells designed for backyard use. The wooden dock boards had become damp from lake spray and evening humidity throughout the day. Grady volunteered to handle the lighting duties. A GoPro camera had been mounted to a dock post 8 feet away to record the finale. angled to capture the fireworks and Grady's reactions. The final firework, a large aerial shell, was placed directly on the damp dock boards near the water's edge. Standard protocols recommended securing such devices in sand or stable containers, but the group opted for direct placement on the wooden surface. Grady positioned himself within 3 feet of the device, standing barefoot on the wet boards. When Grady lit the fuse, the firework began its ignition sequence. However, moisture on the dock surface and improper stabilization caused the cylindrical device to shift position during initial combustion. Instead of launching vertically, the firework tipped sideways and discharged horizontally across the dock surface. The explosive charge expelled burning debris and fragmented casing material at high velocity directly toward Grady's lower legs at close range. The blast struck his right leg below the knee, sending shrapnel into the soft tissue around his calf and ankle. Casing fragments tore through the soft tissue of his lower leg, lacerating the posterior tibial artery and surrounding vessels. Grady immediately collapsed as blood began flowing rapidly from the wound. The arterial damage created significant blood loss within the first minute. His position near the dock's edge caused him to roll into the lake water, where bleeding continued as he became submerged. Friends reacted within seconds, jumping into the water to retrieve Grady. They pulled him back onto the dock and attempted to control bleeding using available towels and clothing. However, the arterial injury had already caused substantial blood loss, and Grady showed no signs of consciousness. Emergency services received the call within 3 minutes. Paramedics arrived at the lake access point 12 minutes later, but required additional time to reach the private dock. When medical personnel reached Grady, they found him unresponsive with significant blood loss. Despite immediate treatment and rapid transport to the regional medical center, Grady was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. The medical examiner attributed his death to exsanguination from traumatic arterial injury caused by firework shrapnel. GoPro footage confirmed the sequence and showed improper placement. Investigators concluded the accident resulted from unsafe fireworks handling. It was December 15, 2018, when the narrow stairwell of a pre-war apartment building in Brooklyn, New York, became the scene of a tragic accident during a birthday photo session. The 4-story building featured a central staircase with worn wooden steps and minimal lighting. December temperatures had dropped to 32 degrees outside, but the unheated stairwell remained cold and drafty. Selah Vance, 22 years old, and an art student at a local college, had chosen this location to stage birthday photographs for her social media accounts. Standing 5 feet 2 inches and weighing 110 pounds, Selah was known for her meticulous attention to detail and perfectionist tendencies. That evening, she had planned an elaborate photo shoot to commemorate her birthday. The apartment building's stairwell featured wooden steps approximately 4 feet wide, with a metal handrail on only one side. The opposite side lacked a continuous guardrail, leaving an exposed edge overlooking the stairwell's open central void. Building maintenance had been minimal, leaving the wooden surfaces worn smooth from foot traffic. Selah had spent the afternoon arranging dozens of small candles along the edges of 8 consecutive steps, creating ambient lighting for her planned photographs. These votive candles, placed in glass holders, lined both sides of the staircase. The flames had been burning for over an hour, allowing wax to accumulate and drip onto the wooden step surfaces below each candle placement. Her birthday cake, a small round confection measuring 8 inches in diameter, had been positioned at the bottom of the stairwell. Selah's plan involved carrying the cake upstairs while her smartphone, mounted on a tripod at the upper landing, recorded the ascent for social media content. As Selah began climbing the stairs while holding the birthday cake, melted wax from the burning candles had created slippery patches on multiple step surfaces. Melted candle wax had pooled and spread across portions of the wooden steps in thin, nearly invisible layers. On the 5th step of her ascent, Selah's right foot contacted a section of softened wax that had accumulated near the step's edge. The smooth wax provided no traction against her shoe sole, causing her foot to slide forward instantly. Her balance shifted backward as she attempted to compensate for the unexpected loss of footing. The birthday cake left her hands as she fell backward, striking the steps below and scattering across the stairwell. Sayla's body followed, tumbling down the 8 steps she had just climbed. Her head struck the sharp edge of the bottom step with significant force, creating immediate trauma to the back of her skull. She came to rest motionless at the base of the stairwell, surrounded by scattered cake pieces and still burning candles. The smartphone continued recording from its elevated position, capturing the entire sequence from the initial slip through the final impact. A neighbor discovered Sayla approximately 20 minutes later when returning to the building. Emergency responders arrived within 6 minutes, but found her unresponsive with obvious head trauma. Despite immediate medical intervention, Sayla was pronounced dead upon arrival at the hospital. The medical examiner attributed her death to severe blunt force trauma to the head resulting from the fall. Smartphone footage clearly showed the moment of the slip and subsequent fall. Fire investigators noted melted wax on step surfaces as the primary factor in the loss of traction. Investigators noted the absence of a continuous guardrail as a contributing safety concern. It was March 12, 2016, when the living room of a rental house in Boise, Idaho, became the scene of a tragic accident during a birthday celebration. The modest house, rented by friends for the weekend, featured an open living area with standard furniture. March temperatures had reached 55 degrees that day, encouraging an indoor gathering. Conrad Moss, 29 years old and a call center supervisor, had been celebrating his birthday with approximately 8 close friends and co-workers. Standing 5 feet 10 inches and weighing 170 pounds, Conrad was known for his sociable nature and tolerance for practical jokes. That evening, Conrad had consumed several beers but remained coherent. The living room contained typical rental furniture, including a sturdy wooden dining chair moved from the kitchen for the planned birthday prank. Several rolls of plastic wrap had been purchased specifically for this birthday gag. Conrad willingly participated in the setup, allowing friends to position him in the wooden chair while they prepared their prank materials. The group's plan involved wrapping him to the chair with multiple layers of plastic wrap, taking photographs for social media, then releasing him before serving birthday cake. A smartphone was positioned nearby to record the sequence. The friends began applying plastic wrap around Conrad's torso and the chair back, creating multiple layers that secured his arms against his sides and restricted his upper body movement. The clear plastic material compressed against his chest and abdomen as additional layers were added. As the plastic wrap accumulated around his chest area, the combined layers began creating significant compression against his rib cage and diaphragm. The tightly stretched plastic wrap maintained constant elastic tension, applying steady pressure that increased with each additional layer. Conrad's ability to expand his chest fully during breathing became progressively restricted. Initially, Conrad appeared comfortable and participated in the group's laughter. However, as compression increased, his breathing pattern changed from normal deep breaths to shorter, more frequent inhalations. The plastic wrap's tight grip prevented his ribcage from expanding to full capacity. Conrad's attempts to shift position only tightened the plastic wrap further, as his movements caused the material to compress more tightly against his body. The accumulated layers restricted chest wall expansion, preventing normal lung inflation and making effective breathing increasingly difficult. As oxygen intake decreased due to restricted breathing, Conrad's responses became less frequent and more subdued. The compression around his chest and abdomen caused restraint asphyxia, where external pressure prevents normal respiratory function. His breathing became increasingly shallow and irregular. Conrad lost consciousness while still secured to the chair, his head falling forward as his body could no longer maintain normal function. The friends initially believed he was continuing the prank, or had dozed off from alcohol consumption, delaying their response. When the group realized Conrad was genuinely unresponsive, they quickly cut away the plastic wrap and attempted to revive him. Emergency services were called immediately, with paramedics arriving within 8 minutes. Despite immediate resuscitation efforts, Conrad could not be revived. The medical examiner attributed Conrad's death to restraint asphyxia, caused by external compression of the chest and abdomen. Smartphone footage confirmed the prolonged restraint and gradual onset of respiratory distress. Local authorities opened a criminal investigation, reviewing the incident for potential involuntary manslaughter due to criminal negligence. It was June 21, 2015, when the backyard pool of a suburban home in Riverside, California, became the scene of a tragic accident during a birthday celebration. The residential property featured a standard rectangular swimming pool, measuring 25 feet in length. June temperatures had reached 94 degrees that afternoon. Piper Wells, 19 years old and a college freshman, had chosen to celebrate her birthday with close friends. Standing 5 feet 6 inches and weighing 130 pounds, Piper was known for her athletic abilities and competitive nature. Her swim coach described her as determined but sometimes reckless, prone to pushing physical limits without adequate safety consideration. The birthday celebration had continued throughout the afternoon, with guests enjoying food, drinks, and pool activities in the intense heat. Piper had consumed a substantial meal approximately 1 hour before the incident, including multiple servings of birthday cake. She had also spent considerable time in direct sunlight without adequate hydration. As the celebration progressed, Piper proposed a breath-holding challenge that involved swimming multiple laps underwater without surfacing for air. This activity was intended as a birthday demonstration of her swimming abilities. The group agreed to time her attempt using a smartphone, with the goal of completing 3 full laps while holding her breath. No designated safety observer was assigned to monitor Piper during the underwater swimming attempt. Friends positioned themselves around the pool deck to watch, but none entered the water. A recreational drone had been deployed to record overhead footage. Piper began the breath-holding challenge by hyperventilating briefly at the pool's edge, a technique she had learned to extend underwater endurance. She then submerged and began swimming using a modified freestyle stroke. The initial 2 laps proceeded normally. During the 3rd lap, several minutes into the attempt, Piper's coordination began to deteriorate as oxygen levels dropped to critical levels. Her swimming stroke became irregular and less controlled. The hypoxic condition began affecting her motor control and cognitive function. Piper's muscle control failed completely as she approached the pool's center. Her arms and legs stopped responding to conscious commands, causing her to lose forward momentum and begin sinking toward the pool bottom. She momentarily reached the surface but failed to draw a meaningful breath before submerging again as motor control collapsed. She sank to the pool bottom in approximately 6 feet of water, where she remained motionless. Friends initially believed she was continuing the breath-holding challenge. Several seconds passed before the group recognized that Piper was genuinely in distress. The delayed recognition occurred because her descent appeared controlled rather than obviously distressed. When friends finally realized Piper was unresponsive, 2 individuals immediately entered the pool and retrieved her from the bottom. They brought her to the pool deck and began CPR while others called emergency services. Paramedics arrived within 7 minutes but found Piper unresponsive. Despite immediate resuscitation efforts, Piper was pronounced dead upon arrival at the regional medical center. The medical examiner attributed her death to drowning following hypoxic blackout, a condition where oxygen deprivation causes sudden loss of consciousness during breath-holding activities. Drone footage captured the surface conditions and delayed recognition of distress preceding the incident. Thanks for watching. Want to see more? Click on your screen now.